Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Our topic is Navigating the Special Needs World by Sue Carpenter. The speaker, Sue Carpenter, is resource specialist, special education specialist, special education teacher, mild, moderate, severe credentials. She's a general education teacher, CLAD, certification, bilingual training, MA in business, and MS in general education and special education. She has 39 years plus of teaching experience at the elementary school level, having taught regular education, a severely handicapped special day class, and resource specialist for grade TK to 6. She has also been the school district mentor for new special education teacher. As a resource specialist for the last 22 years, she has done standardized testing for identification of the complete spectrum of disabilities and created and implemented IEPs. Since she retired last June, she became a special education advocate as well as a private tutor for kids with disability. Sue?
Yes.
Okay, if you want me, you just let me know and I go
okay.
through the page.
We'll go ahead and get started. So if you want to scroll to the first slide.
Yes.
Okay, to start with, as far as eligibility for special education under the federal laws, there are 13 different categories. Our Cat 6A kids fall into many of these categories. Obviously, the first one that anybody is going to assume is intellectual disability, but that's not the only eligibility criteria that they can be qualified under. They may qualify under autism, they may qualify under emotional disturbance, multiple disabilities, orthopedically impaired, other health impaired, a specific learning disability, a speech and language impairment, possibly some of the others, but those are the primary ones. What you need to look at with your child is to determine which one of those eligibility criteria is the primary disability for your child. Then what services do they need based on that disability? Next slide. Okay, as I said, it falls under many of the different eligibilities. And the biggest thing to remember is the primary disability is what impacts the child most in school. Typically, they're not going to provide services for any need that is outside of the school day. That is not part of what would be considered their education, okay? You can have a primary disability and a secondary disability. Typically, your secondary disability is speech and language impaired. You can have a developmental disability with a learning disability as a secondary, but that is excuse me, an IEP team decision. You are part of that IEP team. The recommendation after assessments will come from the school staff, which includes the school psychologist and the special education teacher who does the academic portion, and then any other individuals that are part of that assessment. Speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, adapted PE. Okay, parent import as well as any documentation from doctors is really important, especially if you dispute the eligibility criteria for your child. Okay, eligibility must be determined before an IEP and services are offered. Next slide. Okay, FATE is free and appropriate education under IDEA, which guarantees the right of FATE, free and appropriate education for children with disabilities. Okay, it requires the public school to provide special education that would meet the unique needs of your child and provide related services, which include speech therapy, occupational therapy, etc. Services are always free, no charge may ever be implemented. They are provided for children ages 3 to 22, although some states it's only until the age of 21. Once your child technically finishes high school, whether it's a certificate of completion, graduation, whatever your state provides, they are then entitled to special education services from the school district for an additional 3 or 4 years. Some states withhold the diploma or the certificate of completion until that 3 or 4 year period is done. You need to be the one to advocate then to get that certificate, because I guarantee the school district will forget, brush it under the carpet, but it's important for you to have that for your child. Okay. An IEP is created, reviewed no less than yearly with reassessment every 3 years. You have the right to call an IEP team meeting whenever you feel it is necessary, and the team must respond within 14 days. Child is taught in the least restrictive environment. That's really important. If they're in a special day class, mainstreaming into the regular education program must be part of the IEP as part of the least restrictive environment. Next slide. Okay. What FAPE does not require a school to do. There's certain things you get that free and appropriate public education, but they do not have to provide a specific program or a specific class setting that you want. If it is not available in the district, they don't have to provide it. They must provide the best services for your child. They do not have to provide the best services. In our heads, in our minds, yes, we want the best for our kids. But what the school district says is that they will provide services that are reasonably calculated to help your child make progress, not become a grade level functioning peer. They want them to make progress, and they will not say they will get your child to their age grade level. Okay. They will not guarantee your child a spot in an extracurricular activity or after school sport. Okay, those are the things that the law does not allow you to have. Next slide. Procedural safeguards. You have lots of protections under IDEA for your child. Okay, assessment for eligibility has a 60-day timeline from the time the assessment plan is signed until the IEP is held. That's 60 calendar days, including weekends. The only time the calendar starts is if school is out of session for 7 or more days. School days. Christmas break counts as a stop in the calendar. February break or Easter break does not, because that is only 5 school days. So the calendar continues. The school must provide you with a written explanation of your rights under IDEA and your state's laws, and you are given a printed copy of those parent rights. You are given a copy of them, supposed to be given a copy of them at every annual IEP and every tri-annual, as well as the initial assessment. Okay, parent participation. You participate in any and all IEP meetings. You are the parent, and you may call for an IEP meeting at any time. Okay, nothing may happen without informed consent. That means your signature. No IEP services, whether they are primary or supplementary. If they say, oh, we'll do this in the meantime, make sure that it is documented in the notes that even without a signature, they have agreed to provide those services. Okay, prior written notice must be given to the parent before any change is made to your child's special education services. If you do not agree with the change, your child will stay put until agreement is made. And what that means is whatever the current services or lack of will continue until you agree. If at the end of the IEP, you decide that you don't want to sign it, which is your right, take it home, think about it. Those services can't start until you have signed the IEP and agreed to the services. Okay. If you don't agree with the school district, you have every right to an independent educational assessment. This is also provided free. The school district, though does provide the person to do that independent assessment. If you want to pay for a private assessment with somebody of your choice, you may do that too, but you would have to pay for it. Otherwise, you must accept what the school district has offered as a person to do that assessment. The catch to this in the end is the school district is not required to accept the findings. They can totally disagree with that second independent assessment and say, no, we stand by our assessment, and this is what we're going to offer. You've got a better leg to stand on if you decide to fight it, take it to due process, take it to mediation, if you have disagreed and have a difference in that independent assessment. Next page. Due process. This is when you don't agree to what has happened, what the team is proposing on the IEP. When agreement cannot be made, the parent has the right to due process, and due process starts with mediation. And mediation is a parent, a representative from the school district, and a neutral party who meet and try to reach an agreement. It's usually done at the school district level office in a conference room. And from personal experience for my own daughter, is what happens is you meet as a team together to review the proposal from the school district. Then you meet with the mediator separately to say, we don't agree and this is why. She goes and talks to the school district, and this can go back and forth, back and forth. When she feels some sort of agreement has been made, or there's a complete impasse to make an agreement, then she has everybody come back together. And at that point, if it does not reach agreement, then it goes to due process to court with a hearing officer. Okay. At that point, when it goes through court, it's got many, many levels. And if you don't agree, it goes all the way up to the federal court system. I know here in California, school districts will do anything to avoid going to due process, to going to court, because in this day and age, a school district will lose 90% of the time. So that's another caveat for parents and to know is the school district wants to reach agreement, because every step further that they take it, while it's free for you, it's costing them thousands and thousands of dollars. So they want to reach agreement at the bottom level. They want to reach agreement at mediation. And I got instant agreement at mediation when we took them there for my daughter. Next slide. IEPs include, must be held yearly. You are given 14-day written notice of any IEP meeting. Updates in all areas must be addressed at that IEP. If any area has been labeled in that IEP as a need, then it must be addressed at that annual IEP meeting. The school district team then proposes new goals based on the current goal updates. Those are proposed. They must be agreed to by you before they are then officially put into the document. If a child does not meet an IEP goal in 1 year's time, they cannot just continue and rewrite that goal. There's some reason the child didn't meet that goal, and that needs to be looked at, and whether the goal needs to be simplified, completely changed, altered slightly, or just the level lowered, that needs to be done. You cannot rewrite the exact same goal the next year. Okay. Parent input is given for the child's strengths and areas of concerns, and that is labeled, or excuse me, documented directly into the IEP. Okay. Standardized testing, that is for any state testing and federal testing that is done as part of the entire school environment. I know in California, our state testing starts at 3rd grade. Before that, all kids are exempt because we don't give any. At 3rd grade, state testing is done, and the IEP can determine whether the child is going to take the assessment, be exempt, or given an alternative assessment. And any of these assessments that are given have got a spot on the IEP where any accommodations and modifications to that test can be done. The school district wants test results for every child. They want not to have to say, okay, this child's exempt because they're not able to do it. They need to provide an alternative assessment that the child can take. Okay. Accommodations and modifications are another important part of the IEP. There is, at least in the state of California, our IEPs, we have an entire page for just these accommodations and modifications. They can include special seating in a particular spot in the classroom, a wiggle cushion, a pencil grip, a headphone, breaks, modifying work in the regular education class if that's where they are, reducing work, grades based on effort, not meeting grade standards. That's really important as kids hit middle school and high school, that they aren't giving flunking grades because they're not meeting standards. That's why they have an IEP, and their grades need to reflect that they have special needs. The list of accommodations and modifications can be short or very extensive. in those accommodations and modifications, you want to make sure if you are talking about reducing work, are you reducing that work for all day? Are you reducing it for one subject? Are you reducing it for 20 minutes of the day? What does it look like both in the child's special education class and any mainstreaming that they're doing in regular education? Those are all part of accommodations. Next page. Next page.
I put it on.
Oh, okay, perfect. Services. These must be listed exactly how they are delivered. It can be listed to be delivered daily, weekly, monthly. You're not going to say semesterly. It's too broad. There are too many holidays and days off to list it that way. It is also listed as to how many times that service is given daily, weekly, etc. Is it 3 times, 30 minutes per month? Is it 90 minutes a month over 3 sessions? Listing them as only 90 minutes a month is not okay because it implies that that 90 minutes could be a one-time session. And you typically find this with speech therapists, occupational therapists, adapted PE teachers, where they'll say 90 minutes a month. Well, no, I want to know how many times for that 90 minutes will my child be meeting with that specialist to work on their IEP goals. It is not okay that they are only working 1 time a month for 90 minutes. School site for services. This needs to be listed whether it is your child's home school, the school closest to where they live, or is it in another site in the district because that program is not offered at their home school. Transportation. If transportation is needed, that is provided for free, and it must be listed on the IEP. Anytime a child is not attending their neighborhood school, transportation must be offered and provided at no charge. Catch with transportation and busing is, at least for me, when Kristen was in kindergarten, we were told that her bus, she would be the first picked up because we were the furthest away from the school. She would be on the bus picking up other students for an hour and a half. In the afternoon, coming home, she would be the last dropped off, and it would be a 2-hour bus ride. That was what they had to offer, and legally that's okay. It was not okay for us, and obviously we did not choose to use busing because of the amount of time she would be on a bus, and we were in the position that we could provide her transportation. They will not reimburse you if you are providing the transportation. Criteria for promotion and for graduation. It needs to be documented on the IEP if this is going to be met through IEP goal progress or through meeting regular grade level standards. Watch that carefully, that they don't mark that your child is going to make graduation because they've met grade level standards. It's not going to happen if a child is in special education. So it needs to say that their promotion and graduation is through meeting IEP goals or making progress on their goals. It's not the child's fault if they don't meet the goal. The goal is usually been written as too lofty a goal or has too much in it for the child to be able to master it. It's not their fault if they don't meet it, so you can't base their promotion on that. It needs to be based on their progress on their goals. The notes in the IEP should always be very thorough, should reflect any and all discussions, especially when it's around goals and services. If you choose not to sign the IEP for acceptance at the IEP and you sign it only as being there, when you take it home, read those notes very thoroughly and make sure that they have covered everything that was talked about. And if not, then you're going to meet again to have those changed and additional things added to those notes. Next page. Okay, signature. As I said before, the parent signs the IEP for having attended, and then again, if you agree. If agreement is not met, then only a signature for attending is done. Never leave the meeting without setting up another meeting if agreement is not met. You don't want to be in the position where we go, oh, our calendars are full. Oh, we don't have time. Oh, we can't do it. No, if you have not agreed, knowing your child's not going to get those proposed services until you agree, you want that meeting set up soon. Okay. You always have the right to take the document home for review. You can have outside parties review it after you take it home, but you just can't have any services until it is signed. Next slide. Oh, that's it. The most important thing that I cannot emphasize enough for parents is look at your eligibility criteria and what they want to qualify your child as. Kristen, obviously with Cat 6A, has a cognitive impairment. She is also severely speech and language impaired. She went into kindergarten with one word in her vocabulary. The school district wanted to identify her as learning disabled, but provide no speech and language services. We took them to mediation to get that speech and language service. Come her first triannual, when we discovered that she had as many medical issues as she did and as much difficulty navigating the school campus, we had enough doctor's documentation that we moved her eligibility criteria to orthopedically impaired. And then our secondary was other health impaired. Under the orthopedically impaired, she was able to get what we call in California low incidence funds. She was able to get extra things provided on as part of her IEP that she would not have been able to get under most of the other disabilities that they qualified her for. She had now mind you, at this time, it was many years ago, laptops weren't given to, all of our kids and none of them had them. Kristen had a laptop assigned to her that Kristen in middle school, didn't have to carry from class to class. It was moved from class to class for her. Her middle school was 2-story. There was no way she could navigate the stairs. She was given an aid that would help her navigate the use of the elevator so that no other students got on it, and would get her from the first floor to the second floor. Those were things that they would not have provided, that extra personnel and that extra equipment, had she not been labeled as orthopedically impaired. So make sure as best you can that you have an understanding of what those disabilities will get your child as far as what they need in school as additional services. And for us, it was orthopedic impairment that got it. And besides that, her IQ score, as low as it was in testing, did not reflect my daughter one bit. She does not test well. She does not transition well to strangers. And when she was younger, she had no confidence in her language, such when testing came and somebody would ask her a question, she didn't answer it. Well, it got marked as zeros. Not that she knew it and couldn't answer, it got marked she didn't know it. So the IQ score came out much lower. I didn't want her labeled intellectually disabled because it would have limited where she could have gotten her classroom program. And it would have put her into a program with kids that were much more severely disabled than she was. I wanted her to be able to rise to the occasion. And if she failed that, we could have always changed her to a more restrictive placement. But I felt that the placement best suited for her was in a higher functioning class. And we did that for her clear through high school. So I'm going to stop there and ask if there's any questions or anything that I can tell you or provide for you further beyond that. I know I probably spoke rather fast and covered a lot of material, but let me know any questions.